A very good evening to all our viewers and welcome to this Sunday's edition of Primetime News coming to you live from our Newsfirst studios in Colombo. I'm Arundhati Mudanayaka. Let's start off with a look at the stories making headlines this evening.
The government decided to increase fuel prices. Minister Gammanpilla responds to the General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna.
Sagara Kariyawasam nam praniයෙක් මේ ලෝව වසන බවවත් මන් දැන හිටියේ නෑ. ඇත්ත කියන්නේ.
Presidential Secretariat clarifies reasons behind fuel price hike. Solve your power struggle. Reduce fuel prices immediately. Opposition leader demands the government. Fertilizer shortage continues to affect farmers across the island.
And now the stories in detail. Minister of Energy Udaya Gammanpilla said that the decision to increase fuel prices was approved by President, Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Ministers. Now, he was responding to a statement issued by the General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Attorney at Law Sagara Kariyawasam, demanding Minister Gammanpilla to resign.
මේ ප්‍රකාශය කරන්නේ
If it was Sagara who made this statement, we could have called it Sagara's silly statements. But he has made this statement as the General Secretary of the main political party in Sri Lanka. On the 9th of June 2021, Cabinet Subcommittee on the Cost of Living met. The President, Prime Minister, Minister of Trade Bandula Gunawardena, Minister of Agriculture Mahindanand Aludgamage and Minister of Power Dalasalha Peruma and myself were present at the meeting, along with the Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs Namal Rajapaksa, State Minister of Capital Markets Ajit Niwad Cabral and State Minister of Consumer Affairs Lasantha Ligiavanna. We broadly discussed many matters during the meeting. The petroleum cooperation has been destabilized by debt to the tune of 390 billion rupees. Also, debt of 600 billion rupees to state banks has caused a situation where banks could be destabilized and collapse. On the 31st of May 2021, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka sent an advisory letter to the Secretary of the Treasury and instructed him to increase fuel prices immediately. This is the advice provided by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka to the government. We discussed all of these matters in depth and decided to increase the prices of fuel. All I did was announce a collective decision taken by the President, Prime Minister and the entire government. As Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, who is the Finance Minister of the country, could not attend the media briefing with me, State Minister Niwad Cabral sat at the media briefing with me as his representative. I volunteered to do this dangerous task to protect the President and the Prime Minister. But what did the General Secretary of the Pohotua do? He released a statement on a letterhead carrying the image of the Prime Minister while attacking the Prime Minister. We see President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who won the votes of 6.9 million Sri Lankans, as the fruit of the labour of the SLPP. So Sagara Kariyawasam has made a huge mistake by acting against the decision made by them. MP Sagara Kariyawasam. Now, who should really resign? Is it you or I? The wise people of this country will decide on that.
ගරු සාගර කාර්යවසම් මන්ත්‍රීතුමනි එසේනම් දැන් ඉල්ලා අස්විය යුත්තේ ඔබද නැතිනම් මමද එය තීරණය කිරීම මේ රටේ බුද්ධිමත් ජනතාවට බාරයි.
Minister challenges Sagara Kariyawasam.
පොදුජන පෙරමුණේ මෙවැනි ප්‍රකාශයක් කරන්න.
Senior ministers of the SLPP informed me that there were no discussions held on the content of the statement that was issued. The leader of the SLPP, Mahinda Rajapaksa, and the chairman of the party, Professor G.L. Piris, do not know of any such statement. Now the country is left with the question as to who gave Sagara Kariyawasam the power to issue such a statement. I would like to challenge Sagara Kariyawasam to reveal the names of the senior ministers who were present at the meeting where this statement was drafted.
පුළුවන් නම් හෙලි කරන්න කියලා මම සාගර කාර්යවසම් මැතිතුමාට අභියෝගයක් කරනවා.
Was there an invisible hand behind drafting this statement?
To be very honest, I didn't even know that there was a being on this earth named Sagara Kariyawasam. I believe that a presidential commission must be appointed to find out as to how he got the power to challenge the president and the prime minister.
මේ රටාවල් තියෙනවා අපිත් මේ රටාවල් දකින්න ඔබ දකින්න රටාවල් අපිත් දකින්න
පසුබසුවක් යනවා මේක පිටිපස්සේ බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මහත්තයා ඉන්නවා කියන එක
මගේ පිටිපස්සේ නම් බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමා නැහැ.
Basil Rajapaksa is not behind me, but it is only Sagara Kariyawasam who knows about the people behind him. So you will have to ask him about that. Sagara Karyawasam attacked the two people who were with Mahinda Rajapaksa during the time of the Mahinda Sulanga. There is a saying that goes like this: when a person cannot attack a leopard, they bash the leopard's skin at home. All of us are wondering as to why there are attempts to corner Mahinda Rajapaksa and attack him like this. We are sensitive to that matter, but the entire country must search for who is behind these attacks. They spoke with me. The President and the Prime Minister spoke with me, but I don't believe that it should be made public. Even a few minutes ago, the President had sent me a message on this issue. The President is the person who should reveal the content of that discussion.
The President's media division says the attention of the President, Prime Minister and subject ministers have been drawn to a multitude of reasons which contributed to the recent hike in oil prices. A release issued by the President's media division notes the amending of oil prices was an important decision of a larger scheme which would assist in consolidating the local economy. The release clarifies the decision was taken to strengthen Sri Lanka's banking sector, to maintain lower interest rates, increase the exchange rate, improve the health care and well-being of the nation, and to transform the local consumer economy, which is currently dependent on imports, into a one which is reliant on local products. There are many who hold different perspectives within the government on the decision to increase fuel prices in the country. These are the views expressed by a member of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, State Minister Shehan Semasinghe.
We did not expect an increase in fuel prices during this time period. But on the other hand, we are aware of the economic hardships in moving forward. The government has taken a decision on that, and the General Secretary has made an announcement. Our intention is to look into the possibility of revisiting that decision. We need to hold discussions with the subject minister to look into the possibility of amending the decision taken by the subject minister. So we will hold discussions with the subject minister, the President and the Prime Minister, and we hope to take a decision on the matter in the future.
Member of the governing faction and former Cabinet Minister of Petroleum, MP Chandima Veerakkodi, also expressed his views on the price hike.
The Minister in charge of Energy has no power to decide on the price of fuel. All decisions on the price of fuel are taken by the Ministry of Finance. There is room for the views of the Minister of Energy to be taken into consideration. He can express his views, but the final decision according to the Act cannot be taken by the Minister of Energy. I believe that this is an issue within the government. This is a result of ignorance and also a way to attack targeted individuals by ganging up on them. Because of this, I believe that we as a government are now supplying our people with jokes. The people expect us to unite to fulfill the promises we gave to the people as a government. The leaders of the government must understand that if these sort of attacks continue, it is the government and the leaders of the government who will continue to suffer.
Government MP Jagat Kumara also spoke on the fuel price hike.
Even when the 20th Amendment to the Constitution was presented, there were groups who carried out massive campaigns against the 20th Amendment and organized themselves as various parties and opposed the government and the President. So the same people can hold discussions within the government and voice their opposition there. But now these people who have the power to do this are just muttering before the general public. As public representatives who were appointed by the people, I don't think we can approve this. Some members of the opposition say that the entire government must bear the responsibility of this. I am of the stance that I will not accept responsibility for this, because we were not consulted, nor did we give our approval for this decision. If such a decision was to be made, we would have opposed it anywhere.
A member of a constituent party supporting the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, MP Asanka Navaratna, also spoke on the fuel price hike.
We see this statement demanding the resignation of Minister Udegammanpila as a personal assault made with malice. It was the Cabinet subcommittee headed by the Prime Minister that decided to increase the price of fuel, so it is not fair to simply blame the subject minister for this. If he wants those involved in making this decision to resign from their positions, then everyone who is a member of this subcommittee must resign.
Sri Lanka's opposition leader Sajith Premadasa called on the government to stop burdening the public and to immediately reverse the decision to increase fuel prices. In a statement, the opposition leader said the disgraceful act of increasing fuel prices at this time has led to much controversy in the country, and the government has become a joke among the people as it is unaware as to who decided to increase the prices of fuel. Sajith Premadasa went on to note that internal struggles of the government are burdening the people. The statement adds that instead of pointing fingers at each other, which will not benefit the people, the government must solve its internal struggles by itself. The statement further adds that the government is drunk on power and acting irresponsibly by increasing the fuel prices, further burdening the people who are already facing the brunt of COVID-19. The statement adds that the opposition will not idle by while the public become the victims of this power struggle.
Chief incumbent of the Aberame Venerable Muruthattuwe Ananda Thero, convening a media briefing today, spoke about the fuel price hike.
People are getting angrier by the day. The day people will take it to the streets is not that far away. This will be the end of the Rajapaksa regime. We request them not to pave the way for such an event and carry out the country forward. The late Venerable Maduluave Sobithatero said not to give power to one individual, and that will result in the destruction of the country. That is what has happened today. We have given the power to one individual, and what we expected is not taking place in the country. This president has the executive powers. I would like to ask Minister Gammanpila not to increase the price of fuel, even though he has to. The government has to tell him not to resort to that because the hate against the government will heighten from acts such as these. That is the purpose of the executive. Otherwise, the executive would be pointless.
When the fuel prices were increased at a time when the people of the country are suffering, the screenplay written by the Rajapaksas is being acted by Sagara Karyavasam. They are saying that this was done by Gammanpila. We would like to raise this question. If Gammanpila should resign over the increase of fuel prices, shouldn't the Minister of Health resign after she allowed COVID-19 to spread in the country and kill 2,000 people? The Minister of Aviation must resign as he failed to ensure that people who enter the country are free of COVID-19. The Minister of Justice and Minister in charge of Police should resign as they could not take necessary action against the perpetrators of the April 21st attacks. The Minister of Ports, who was unable to manage the fire on board the ship, must also resign. The Minister of Fisheries, who was unable to prevent this massive damage to our seas, must resign. The Agriculture Minister, who failed to provide the farmers with fertilizer and made their lives harder, must resign. The Minister of Consumer Affairs, who failed to establish a proper mechanism for the purchase and sale of food that caused massive increases in food prices, must also resign. Not only that, since the government is now focused on purchasing vehicles for MPs when they cannot purchase vaccines priced at 2,000 rupees, the Prime Minister, who is in charge of the Finance Ministry, who approved this, must also resign. The heads of the Cabinet Subcommittee on Cost of Living, who increased the fuel prices and made the lives of the people harder, must also resign. In the end, who would be left? There is no one left.
Along with the amendments done to fuel prices, a public discourse has arisen regarding the proposal to import luxury vehicles for MPs and ministers. State Minister Lohan Ratwatta is of the opinion that vehicles must be imported for the use of ministers and members of parliament. It is wrong to say that these vehicles are brought to the country using state funds. It is done through a credit line. This credit line was obtained by the previous government and not the present one. If it is not utilized, it will be a waste. We must make use of it before that. The debt of the government will not increase through this credit line. I believe that we must import these vehicles without wasting it.
Meanwhile, in a tweet, the leader of the opposition said, quote,
We of the Samagi Jana Balawege reject the proposal of the government to provide MPs with vehicles at taxpayers' expense, unquote. The tweet goes on to say, quote, "We urge the government to ensure that these scarce public funds are utilized to provide vaccines for all Sri Lankans," unquote. It adds that the SJB will never approve of using public resources for the betterment of the lives of politicians. Rather, such resources should be invested in promoting a prosperous and a developed motherland.
Now, when MPs and ministers are so keen about importing luxury vehicles to the country, what does the general public of the country request from the authorities? The fertilizer needed for the production of rice. Farmers in several areas engaged in protest today as well, demanding solutions for the fertilizer shortage.
These are the farmers who cultivate potatoes in Hevanakumura, Kappatipola in Valimada.
There are about 1,000 acres in this plot of land. However, this plot of land has gone barren now. The farmers have realized the reason for this land being infertile is the disastrous decision this government has taken. The farmers who are already in a desperate situation are now in dire straits. This is what has happened to the carrot cultivation without fertilizer. This is how the plant is infected with fungi without pesticides. They should be cursed for this massive destruction they have caused. All of them must be sent home for what they have done to us farmers.
The shortage of fertilizer has impacted tea cultivation in the country as well. According to farmers in Pitabaddara, Siembalagoda, Diyadawa and Pahurutota in Matara, alleged tea cultivation have had dire consequences due to the shortage of fertilizer. Small tea plants have turned yellow due to the lack of fertilizers such as T65 and T200.
Annually, there is a market for about 5,000 tea plants in the Matara district. It is these plant nurseries that provide that amount. But this decision will make these planters abstain from performing their duties. What we want to tell the authorities is that if you have come up with a plan or conducted an investigation into this, present a plan of action for these planters. If this persists, we will have to come up with a conclusion that this is nothing but a plan to sabotage the entire tea industry in the country. These experiments are carried out with the lives of farmers.
Land is being prepared for big onion cultivations in Sigiriya and Galkiriyagama. However, the farmers are not at all hopeful of reaping their harvest.
We did not receive even one seed of fertilizer. We were suffering because we did not receive any fertilizer, but now we are battered because we do not have lamp oil. What are we to do without lamp oil? We do not get salaries every month. Now we have no option but to step out to the streets because of this. The authorities are trying to import luxury vehicles. These MPs and ministers do not care about farmers. They have been appointed as public representatives, but what have they done for the public?
Farmers in Polonnaruwa say that it will take a miracle to reap the harvest this season.
What they say has to be practical. The dark side of this is rich people will store the fertilizer and sell it at a rate between 3,000 to 5,000 rupees. This is a real problem. Professors and specialists of the government say that we do not know of these matters, but we do know.
The Agrarian Service Centre in Yakalla, Galinbindunuwava received stocks of fertilizer yesterday. However, the farmers say that this stock was distributed in an unfair manner.
We have paid for fertilizer, but we did not receive any as of yet. We have not received any concessions. The authorities are distributing fertilizer to their close allies. That cannot happen. It has to be carried out in a just manner. After we paid for the fertilizer, they returned the money saying that they cannot give us fertilizer. They loaded more than enough fertilizer on the truck. Why is this government doing this to us? We are innocent people. We have families as well. We have to get by as well. Why are they doing this to us? They are only picking on innocent people.
Well, time for a short commercial break. Stay with News First. We will be right back.
Bellboy's got you covered. Download Bellboy today to get all your household appliance fixing and repairs done. Now available on Android and iOS.
Welcome back to the news. The 187th feast of St. Anthony's Shrine in Kochikade was celebrated today. The celebrations were led by the Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit.
The celebratory mass was attended by the auxiliary bishops of Colombo. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic situation in the country, devotees were not allowed to attend the mass.
ඔබ වහන්සේගේ මේ සිද්ධාස්ථානය තුලද කටුව පිටියේ සුද්ධෝ සෙබස්තියන් මුනි දෙව් විමන තුලද වෙනත් ස්ථාන කීපයකදීද එදා 2019 අප්‍රේල් 21 වෙනිදා ඝාතනය කරනු ලැබූ ඒ සියලු දෙනා අපි ඔබ වහන්සේට බාර කරමු. ඒ ව්‍යසනයෙන් ශාරීරික ආබාධවලටත් සිය ආදරවන්තයින් අහිමි වූ නිසා පීඩාවට හා වේදනාවටත් පාත්‍ර වූ අයටත් ඔවුන්ගේ ඒ වේදනාව තුනී කර ගන්නට සහාය වූ මැනව. හිතුවක්කාර ලෙස අන්තවාදයට යට වී මේ අසරණයින්ගේ ලේ මේ ශුද්ධ භූමිය තුල හෙලා ඒ ව්‍යසනය සිදු කළ සියලු දෙනාටත් එයට අනුබල දුන් දැන් තමන් සුද්ධවන්තයින් යයි සිතමින් උදම්මන අයවලුන්ටත් තමන්ගේ යුතුයකම පැහැර හැරි දේශපාලන ලාභ ප්‍රයෝජන සඳහා මේ ව්‍යසනය ගැන දැනත් එය වැළැක්වීමට කටයුතු නොකළ දේශපාලකයින්ටත් විවිධ ක්ෂේත්‍රවල නිලධාරීන්ටත් යුක්තිය ඉටු කරලීමට දෙවියන් වහන්සේ ඉදිරියේ බලවත්ව මෙදහත්ව මැනව. මේ අසරණයින්ගේ ලෙයින් දේශපාලන වාසි ලබා ගන්නට කටයුතු කළහා ඔවුන්ට යුක්තිය ඉටු නොකර අදටත් සිය වගකීම පැහැර හරිනවුන්ටත් දේව නීතිය තුල වූ යුක්තිය ඉටු කරලීමට කටයුතු කළ මැනව. මේ ඔබ වහන්සේගේ ශුද්ධ භූමිය තුල හැලුණු ඔබ බැතිමතුන්ගේ ලය මේ යුක්තිය ඉල්ලා ස්වර්ගයට මුරගසයි. මිනිස් නීතිය තුලින් ලබාගත නොහැකි යුක්තිය ඔවුන් වෙනුවෙන් ඉටු කර දීමට දයාබරිත සුද්ධවන්තෝනි මුනිදුනි ඔබ වහන්සේ අපට දෙවියන් වහන්සේ ඉදිරියේ මැදිහත් වී ක්‍රියාකාරී වූ මැනව. ආමේන්.
Also in local news, carcasses continue to pile up on Sri Lankan coastline following the Express Pearl disaster. Among the casualties of the disaster are turtles, a species who usually have a lifespan that extends across hundreds of years. More carcasses of these strong marine species and many others continue to wash ashore today. Carcasses of 3 such animals washed ashore in Dehiwala and Kolpiti today. In total, 26 turtle carcasses have washed up on Sri Lankan shores during the past few days.
The carcass of a turtle was found along the Dehiwala beach today. The carcass of a fully grown turtle was also found along the Kolpiti beach this morning. Meanwhile, the carcass of a dolphin had washed ashore on the Ichankadua beach in Kalpitia. The carcass was taken to the Kalpitia Wildlife Office for further examination. The Director General of the Wildlife Department said that a total of 5 dead dolphins had washed ashore. He added that parts of the deceased animals were handed over to the government analyst for further testing. News First inquired from the government analyst department regarding this matter. A senior official of the department said that more samples, including relevant tissue parts, are due to be received. The official further pointed out that a special team has been deployed for this purpose. Meanwhile, a criminal investigation by the Sri Lanka police revealed that the fire on board the Express Pearl container ship was caused due to negligence. Sri Lanka police said the Criminal Investigations Department and other investigative units are pursuing their avenues of investigations on what is dubbed as Sri Lanka's worst maritime disaster.
Meanwhile, the National Bhikkhu Front expressed these views regarding the government's clarification on the arrival of the Express Pearl to Sri Lankan waters.
We saw
Nalaka Godaheva saying that this ship is not an illegal one. It did not come by force and that there were no problems since the ship had docked at other ports. He is simplifying this matter. What is he trying to hide by simplifying this?
ගොඩහේව මහත්තයෝ ඔබතුමාගේ ඔය ගොඩකම් මිනිස්සුන්ට මේ විදියට ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න යන්න එපා. ඔබතුමාලා හංගනවා.
You are hiding the fact that this ship visited ports in India and other locations. Other ports had rejected the ship when the captain had informed the ports regarding its oil leak and requested permission for it to be fixed. The ship was told to take their containers and leave. We allowed them to arrive and bring forth a great danger. Why is Nalaka Godaheva trying to hide it? Honorable Prime Minister, I know you are not an expert regarding this. These people are your advisors. They are charlatans. This prevents us from being aware of the damage properly.
Fisheries associations point out that the increase in fuel prices coupled with the effects that the Express Pearl disaster had on the fishing industry has left the fishermen of the country in dire straits. There needs to be some concession for the fishermen. The fishermen cannot engage in their trade at the moment. They have no relief. The increase of fuel prices will directly impact the daily life of the fishermen. They say a compensation of 5,000 will be provided by the government. What can we do with a mere 5,000 rupees?
මේ සමස්ත දීවර ජනතාවට අත දිගු කරලා හොඳ කනේ පාරක් දීලා දෙනවා ආණ්ඩුව.
The government has dealt a direct blow to the fishing community. These devastated people will be compelled to grab the government by its neck. Please don't act irresponsibly. If measures are not taken to reduce the prices of fuel, we are ready to take action together with the entire fisheries community. We were affected by the port city issue as well. Even before the effects of this faded away, there is another issue. All the fish along the coast are gone. At a time like this, the government brought that ship, making the fishermen even more helpless. Vendors do not purchase our harvest. Why? Because the consumer won't eat fish.
A relief program to provide relief to the affected by the travel restrictions are already underway. But there are many villages in Sri Lanka that have not received any of these concessions.
These daily wage earners living in nearby estate houses in Mirin, Hunnasgiriya Kandy have been severely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Making ends meet is an insurmountable daily struggle for these people.
මට සමෘද්ධි මම ලියලා දැම්මත් තාම මට සමෘද්ධි ඇවිත් නැහැ. ඒ වුණාට මට රුපියල් 5000 හම්බ වුණේ නැහැ. චක්ලේකේ නම තියෙනවා. ගොඩාක් දුෂ්කරම තමයි ජීවත් වෙන්නේ. මේ දවස් ටික ගුලි වැඩක් නැහැ. හරි අමාරුවෙන් තමයි ජීවත් වෙන්නේ. මේ දවස්වල තියෙන්නේ සර් අපිට කන්න බොන්න හරි අමාරු. රස්සාව කරන්න නැහැ කවුරුවත්ම රස්සාව නැහැ. ඔක්කොම ගෙවල් වල ඉන්නේ.
G7 has announced that it will donate 1 billion vaccine doses by next year. The G7 leaders have published their final communique, a document summarizing the summit's agreements and pledges.
In the final communique, the G7 pledges to deliver more than 1 billion coronavirus vaccinations to poor countries and raise $100 billion to help them cut carbon emissions. The club of leading economies including Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom and the United States say a joint approach is the world's best chance for recovering from the global health crisis and tackling climate change. Other pledges include supporting a target to get 40 million more girls into education with at least $2.75 billion for the Global Partnership for Education, which works to give all children a chance at education.
Over in China, at least 12 people were killed and nearly 140 others injured when a gas line explosion ripped through a residential compound in central China's Hubei province today.
According to a statement from the Disaster Management Bureau in the city of Xi'an, rescue efforts were continuing, although it was unclear how many people may still be trapped under the debris. The statement said the explosion took place around 6:30 a.m. local time and an investigation was underway to determine the cause of the blast. 138 people were hospitalized, of which 37 were critically injured. Videos shot by witnesses and verified by foreign media showed several buildings reduced to rubble and rescue workers carrying shocked survivors on stretchers.
And in sports news, Yevan Daniel of Sri Lanka was placed 17th at the original Kart Junior OK Junior category at the WSK Euro Series held at the Adriana International Raceway in Italy today.
Junior World Champion and Junior World Cup winner Freddie Slater clinched the first place. OK Junior is a kart racing class for top drivers aged 11 to 15 at the WSK Euro Series. The second round of the WSK Euro Series concluded today in Italy. Yevan David was placed third in the second pre-finals under the original Kart Junior OK Junior category with a timing of 14 minutes and 31.98 seconds.
Roll the grid for the final. Tony Kart Racing Team versus Ricky Flynn Motorsport. Harley and Freddie, this is Slater through the hairpin for the final.
64 racing drivers were qualified for the second round of the WSK Euro Series, while 34 were qualified for the finals. The race that consisted of 16 rounds was completed by Yevan Daniel in 13 minutes and 35.235 seconds. Yevan was placed 25th in the first round of the series held in April. The third round of the WSK Euro Series will be held on the 24th of this month.
On the 7th of June 2021, the United Nations General Assembly elected the Foreign Minister of the Maldives, Abdullah Shahid, as the 76th President of the General Assembly. An exclusive interview conducted by Newsfirst Jaimal Ratnayaka with Mr. Abdullah Shahid will follow after tonight's bulletin. And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of Primetime News. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Arundhati Mudanayaka together with our interpreter this evening, Taraka Gabriel. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.